James Ransone. Hollywood loved his pain. And that's the dark truth. There's a lie Hollywood tells itself. The lie is that suffering is just part of the job. That pain is something you can turn on and off. That when the director yells cut, everything goes back to normal. But James Ransone's life forces us to ask a harder question. What if some actors aren't pretending to be broken? What if they're being hired because they already are? When James Ransone died, people didn't just mourn him, they rewatched him. Clips flooded social media. Scenes from The Wire. Moments from it. Chapter 2. Quiet, trembling expressions from Sinister and the Black Phone. And the comments all started to sound eerily similar. He always looked haunted. You could see the pain in his eyes. He made fear feel real. At first, those sound like compliments. But sit with them long enough, and they become something else. Because what people were really saying was this. James Ransone didn't act pain, he contained it. From the very beginning, James wasn't cast as power. He wasn't cast as confidence. He wasn't cast as men who had things figured out. His career didn't build toward heroes or saviors or winners. It built toward damage. When The Wire introduced Ziggy Saboka, the character was almost designed to be disposable. Loud, insecure, desperate for validation. A man constantly embarrassing himself in front of people he wanted respect from. Ziggy wasn't meant to be admired. He was meant to be pitted, laughed at, and eventually broken. And James made that destruction unforgettable. Ziggy's downfall didn't feel fictional. It felt personal, like watching someone unravel in slow motion while everyone around them either mocked them or ignored them. That performance was praised as one of the most realistic portrayals of insecurity ever put on television. But realism has a cost. After The Wire, James didn't graduate to safer territory. He didn't get romantic leads or glossy studio roles. Instead, Hollywood quietly placed him into a box. The box labeled, emotionally unstable, but brilliant. So that's where he stayed. Soldiers cracked by war. Men suffocating under anxiety. Characters shaped by childhood trauma. People standing on the edge of collapse. Over time, James Ransone became a shortcut. If a director needed fear that felt authentic, they called James. If a story needed a man who looked like he'd lived too much life, they called James. If a horror movie needed someone who didn't feel like an actor pretending to be afraid, they called James. And no one asked why it came so naturally. Years later, when James revealed that he had been sexually abused as a child, the entire career took on a different meaning. Suddenly, the performances weren't just impressive, they were unsettling. Because trauma doesn't disappear. It waits. It hides. It reshapes the nervous system. And when you ask someone to repeatedly access fear, vulnerability, and helplessness, you may be asking them to reopen wounds that never fully healed. James had struggled with heroin addiction in his early adulthood. He fought it. He survived it. He got sober. That alone should have been treated as a miracle. But sobriety doesn't erase memory. It just removes the fog. Hollywood celebrates method when it produces results. But what happens when the method is your own life? What happens when your pain becomes your calling card? Film after film, James was praised for how natural his suffering looked. Reviewers talked about his lived-in fear. Fans talked about how his characters felt too real. Too real. That phrase should have scared us more than it did. Because there's a difference between acting fear and revisiting it. There's a difference between pretending to be anxious and having your body remember something your mind has tried to bury. And yet, the roles kept coming. Darker, heavier, more psychological. Sinister wasn't just a horror movie. It was about dread that seeps into daily life. The Black Phone wasn't just about danger, it was about childhood terror. Chapter 2 wasn't just about monsters. It was about adults still living with the scars of what happened when they were young. James Ransone didn't just fit these stories. He matched them. And the industry took that match as proof of talent, not as a warning sign. We like to imagine that someone notices. That someone on set pulls an actor aside and says, "Hey, are you okay?" That someone insists on boundaries. That someone prioritizes the human over the performance. But Hollywood isn't built for that. It's built for results. James delivered them every time. Off-screen, he was a husband, a father, a man capable of bravery in real life, including a moment where he ran toward violence to save a stranger from being assaulted. That detail alone shatters the idea that he was weak. He wasn't weak. He was exhausted. When James Ransone died, people immediately tried to soften the truth. They spoke gently, carefully, respectfully, and that's understandable. But gentleness shouldn't erase honesty. The honest truth is that James Ransone spent decades mining his own pain to entertain us. We rewarded him with applause. We rewarded him with praise. We rewarded him with roles that demanded more of the same. And when the pain finally outweighed the praise, there was no safety net waiting underneath. The industry posted tributes. Fans shared clips. Critics wrote essays. But none of that changes the question his life leaves behind. How many actors are being applauded right now for depth that is actually unresolved trauma? How many performances we call brilliant are being fueled by something the actor can't turn off? How many times do we mistake suffering for authenticity and then act surprised when the suffering wins? James Ransone didn't owe us his pain, but we took it anyway. And maybe the darkest part of this story isn't that Hollywood failed James Ransone. It's that we only started asking these questions after he was gone. Did we mistake warning signs for talent? Did we confuse trauma with depth? Did Hollywood keep putting him in emotionally dangerous roles because he made them look believable? James Ransone didn't fail Hollywood. Hollywood consumed James Ransone. And when the pain finally became too much, when the weight of everything he carried outweighed the applause, the system did what it always does. It moved on. Tributes were posted. Clips were shared. Quotes were recycled. But the deeper question remains unanswered. How many actors are being praised right now for realism that is actually unresolved trauma? How many performances we celebrate are coming at the cost of someone's mental health? James Ransone's legacy isn't just the characters he played. It's the warning he leaves behind. That pain is not a renewable resource. That authenticity can be dangerous. That being great at suffering shouldn't be a career path. And maybe the darkest truth of all, James gave the world everything it asked for, and it still wasn't enough to save him.